Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Activate Her with me, Sally Goodwin. There we go. Just waiting for Facebook to do its thing. Welcome, everybody, to Activate Her with me, Sally Goodwin, on this gorgeous Monday morning. It is Start Your Week with Sally. And I guess it is Start Your Week with Sally. I mean, you are starting your week with me, but at the same time, you are also starting your week with Jesus and the Word of God. And what better way to start the week than in the presence of the Lord and diving into the Word and hearing God's prophetic utterances for our lives and the lives of our families and the lives of our communities and the lives, the future and the destiny of our nations. And that is pretty much what God wants to speak about all the time. He wants to speak about us. He wants to speak about the future. He wants to speak about His plans. He wants us to focus more on His plans than the plans of the enemy. And sometimes we get that a little bit confused, hey? So welcome, welcome, welcome to Activate Her with me, Sally Goodwin. Oh my goodness, what is happening now? It is telling me to check my internet connection, which I'm about to do right now. My internet connection says that it's all fine. So I'm hoping that this is all good. Good morning, Radiant Roz. Welcome, beautiful friend. Good morning, beautiful Bertha. Lovely to see you, my angel. So good to have you online this morning with this community, this family, this church without walls. It's really such a privilege to minister to all of you. Good morning, magnificent Michelle. Welcome, beautiful friend. Just while I'm speaking to you and waiting for a few more people to hop on, I'm just getting to the book of Esther in a couple of my translations. Good morning, beautiful Brigitte. Welcome, my lovely. Good morning, Nadine. It's so good to have you on the live, my friend. My beautiful friend Nadine has purchased so many of my books for her friends. She just has the most generous heart. And she has just blessed so many of her friends with my book. So it's so good to have you on, Nadine. Welcome, wonderful Vilna. Good morning, amazing Anisha. Welcome, courageous Claudia. So good to see you this morning. So good to have you all on at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. Often when I finish on a Friday and I'm like, I'll see you all on Monday at 7 a.m. and I think, my word, everybody probably thinks, oh my goodness, Monday at 7 o'clock. Good morning, amazing Alma. It's so good to have you online. What a privilege. There's so many. Good morning, special Sonia, my gorgeous daughter. Welcome, welcome, beautiful girl. There's so many people who are a part of this online community but can't always make the lives first thing in the morning. So they watch the replays and they communicate with me loads. They're very much part of this community, but they can't always be here in the space, you know. So our community, our online community, our Church Without Walls is bigger than we think it is. It's bigger than just the people who are able to be on the lives. There actually are many more people. Good morning, joyful Jolene. Welcome, my beautiful friend. Good morning, lovely Lynette. So good to see you. And it's such a privilege to welcome you all this morning. Conrad, wonderful Conrad. Welcome, my friend. Claudia managed to figure out how to respond to the other comments. I'm so glad because I was completely dumbfounded by your question. I actually have never experienced that, and so I wasn't entirely sure what to do about that, but I'm so glad that you've managed to figure that out. So it's so good to have you all on. It's so good to see you all. Today, my youngest baby my youngest baby It's his birthday today, and he turns 23. It is quite amazing to know that your youngest child is turning 23. Good morning, lovely Tamsin. Welcome, my gorgeous. Thank you, beautiful Bertha. Bertha always reminds me, please like and share. Please like and share these lives. Is my hair sticking up? Please like and share these lives. You are my digital evangelists. You are my media missionaries. Not mine, actually, but the Lord's. And you get the word out to everybody. So, yes, so please, if you would like and share, I would be ever so grateful, and encourage friends to follow my Facebook page. Good morning, lovely Lydia. Oh, wonderful. It's your husband's birthday as well. Yes, so my youngest son, his name is Joshua, and it is his birthday today, and he turns 23, and he is just the most amazing boy. Just absolutely, well, my husband keeps saying he's not a boy anymore, Sally, he's a man. He is the most amazing man. He's really incredible. He's clever, he's talented, he's just wonderful. So yes, so thank you so much to all of you. So we will be celebrating him today. And I miss the days, I miss the days when you went shopping, for toys or clothes or things. Good morning, Nikki. Welcome, my lovely. And you are in your kitchen making yogurts. Well done. Honestly, really, like, hats off to you. I wish I could do things like that. Thank you, Pete. Powerful Pete. Welcome this morning. Thank you for the birthday wishes for my boy. Yeah, he's not such a baby anymore. He's 6 foot, almost 6'2", and quite a giant of a man, actually. But he's gorgeous boy, absolutely gorgeous, and just a wonderful child. All in all, I'm super proud of him. So and just, can't believe 23 years have passed. I mean, honestly, how quickly do those years go? When they're little, you think those years will never end, but they go so quickly. So I wanted to also say that, just for those of you who don't know, I have an Instagram account, Activate Her with Sally Goodwin. I have a YouTube account, Activate Her with Sally Goodwin. Nikki Stell is a farmer living in Philadelphia. Come on, Nikki, that's amazing. That is incredible. Anointed Nikki from Philadelphia. That's amazing. I love hearing where all of you are from. I love hearing where all of you are from. And so many of the incredible women on this broadcast are from Cape Town and surrounds, but we have people from Greyton, we have people from Hermanus, we have people from Dwarskersbos, we have people from Jacobsbaai, we have people from Philadelphia now. We have people from all over the place. So yes, if I've forgotten your town that isn't in Cape Town, forgive me. I'm running through them all. We've got people from New Zealand who come on, people from the UK who come on, people from the States who come on. Just amazing. So I'm just so excited. I really am. And just the first 10 minutes, I just normally spend waiting for everyone to hop on and greeting everyone, because we are a family. We're not just, this isn't just an anonymous broadcast that goes out. We're a family, we're a community, we're a church without walls. And it's just so good to see you all. So welcome. And yes, so my baby's birthday. What was I saying? Oh, yes. I have to remember all these threads of conversation. Please, if you could encourage people who can't make the lives on Facebook to either follow my YouTube channel, Activate Her with Sally Goodwin. Sorry, my nose is itching. It's allergies. And or my Instagram, which is Activate Her with Sally Goodwin, or this Facebook page. Good morning, lovely Lauren, my gorgeous friend. So beautiful, Lauren, my lovely Dr. Jen's sister, who is obviously going through a grieving process for her sister. So if we could all just please keep Lauren in our prayers, and just be praying for her, be praying for Tessa, for everybody else. We remember, Dr. Jen is remembered, and life goes on, but Tessa and Lauren have to walk a road, and Devan have to, and have to walk a road, a pathway, a journey of grief. So if we could all just please keep them in our prayers. Good morning, lovely Curl. Pete, I am on TikTok. I am on TikTok, but I'm not very good at sharing on TikTok because I don't know how to cut my videos into smaller portions. So I am on TikTok, and there are a couple of things up on TikTok that you can go and have a look at. It's the same, Activate Her with Sally Goodwin, but I just still need to learn to edit portions out of my videos so that I can put them on TikTok. I haven't got there yet, and it's really a timing thing. I just don't have time. Okay, my beautiful Brigitte, we will see you later. Hello, Louise. There is my friend from New Zealand, my gorgeous New Zealand friend. So welcome, everybody. Good morning, special Sylvia. It is so good to see you all this morning. So good to have you on this Church Without Walls. Good morning, Terelia. Natalia Clenance. Welcome, beautiful girl. Lovely to have you on this morning. Welcome, special Sunette. Terrific, Taryn. Thank you, lovely Lynette. Yes, pray for a team. Somebody who is young enough to know how to do TikTok for me. Okay, so let us move into the teaching for today. Now, we are in Adar 2, which we've spoken about before. So those of you who know me know that I pay attention to the prophetic, to the Hebrew calendar from a prophetic perspective. I am not particularly religious about the feasts and the festivals, and whether you celebrate them or don't celebrate them. I am quite comfortable with you being as interested in the Hebrew calendar as you choose to be, or as the Holy Spirit leads you to be, or as the Holy Spirit convicts you to be. I'm not laying down rules for anybody. I'm not encouraging you to move from one form of religious legalism to another form of religious legalism. And I just want to make that clear for those of you who are new to this platform. However, I do pay attention to the Hebrew calendar because I believe that God has a prophetic message to bring through that calendar, because He instituted the calendar. If you read right back to the early Old Testament, you will see how God told them to do certain things at certain times of the year, and the Hebrew calendar was God's design. And it's not exactly the way God designed it anymore. We have lost track of exactly where we are in terms of years, even in the Hebrew years. So nothing is cast in stone. Nothing is exactly the way God orchestrated it or ordained it to be in the Old Testament. However, we follow along with it because it is as close as we can come to that right now. So I pay attention to the prophetic emphasis and symbolism of the Hebrew calendar. And I am very excited to teach people about it and to share it, but I'm not in any way religious about it or legalistic about it. So please understand that. And so we are in Adar 2. So the Jewish people have a leap year every now and again. It's not every 7 years like ours. It's a little bit less definite than that, because they follow a lunar calendar. So they follow the cycle of the moon. It means that every now and again their calendar gets out of sync with the cycles of the moon, and so they have to add in an extra month to ensure that they cover a complete year. And those months are Jewish leap years, and in that month they add in an extra month of Adar. So they have Adar 1, which is already passed, and they have Adar 2. And then we go into the month of Nisan, which is the beginning of the new biblical calendar. So the Hebrews also have, the Jewish people have two different calendars. They have a biblical calendar, which begins with the month of Nisan, and then they have a civil calendar, which starts around our sort of September, October, and that is when the year changes to a different number. So this year, September, October, I must check the dates, we will move from 5784, which is the Hebrew year we're in right now, to 5785. But we are in Adar 2, and as I've said before, the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, consider a leap year to be a pregnant year. They're pregnant with possibilities because it is longer or has an extra month of Adar, and the month of Adar is considered to be a month of joy, a month of rejoicing, a month when the curse was reversed. So it is a month when the curse was reversed. The curse over the Jewish people spoken by Haman and decreed by the king was reversed by the actions of Esther. And so, but when the Jewish people have two Adars, Adar 1 and Adar 2, they celebrate Purim, which is the feast of Esther, in Adar 2, because there has to be a certain amount of time between Purim and Passover. And in order for that to happen, because they go from redemption to redemption, so in order for that to happen, good morning, terrific Tilly, in order for that to happen, they put Purim in the second month of Adar. However, I actually discovered very recently that many Jewish people celebrate what they call Purim Katan. Good morning, lovely Tessa, my beautiful. They celebrate what they call Purim Katan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so don't shoot me. But it's something like that, Katan. Good morning, amazing Anthea. They celebrate something called Purim Katan in Adar 1. So on the 14th of Adar, because that's when Purim is, on the 14th of Adar 1, they celebrate what it's translated as small Purim or little Purim. Good morning, Ioannessa. Welcome, my beautiful. Haven't seen you for a while. Such a privilege to have you on. Ioannessa is from Paarl, right? Yes, I think so. So yeah, so they celebrate Purim Katan, which is small Purim. So they don't do all the things that they do for Purim in Adar 2, but they do celebrate kind of a smaller version of Purim in Adar 1 just to mark the dates. And then in Adar 2 they celebrate Purim proper, if we can call it that. Those aren't their words. What I also discovered recently is that apart from calling it the Hebrew leap year an enlarged, a pregnant year, they also call it an enlarged year. Now, obviously, that makes practical sense to us because it is an enlarged year because it has 13 months instead of 12 months. But I just felt that was so pertinent, an enlarged year, especially if we look in light of the fact that God has been proclaiming for a while now, since when? Since before August last year, since before my previous book launch. Oh, I need to tell you something about that. Since before my previous book launch, God has been speaking about this Isaiah 54 company of women. And we know that Isaiah and an Isaiah 54 company of men, for those of you men who want to be up there, up front, pioneering with us girls. And we know that Isaiah 54 speaks about enlarging your territory, enlarging your tent pegs. And we also know that if you picture a tent and you picture enlarging the tent pegs, that means a certain amount of stretching has to take place. So we all pray and we all say to the Lord, enlarge our territory, enlarge our tent pegs. We all decree and declare Isaiah 54 over us from that perspective, but we forget that if you have ever pitched a tent, which I have to be absolutely honest, I haven't ever pitched a tent, but I have watched a tent being pitched, and if you've ever pitched a tent or watched a tent being pitched, you will know that the cords that go from the tent to the tent pegs, if you want to make the tent stretch out further, you have to stretch those cords out to make that tent a bigger space. So we pray for enlargement. We ask God to enlarge our territory. We ask him to enlarge our footprint, to enlarge our sphere of influence, all of those things. But we forget that with enlarging comes stretching. If we look at the year 5784 being a pregnant year, what happens when a woman is pregnant and her tummy gets bigger and bigger? Your skin stretches, your stomach stretches, your uterus stretches to hold this baby that is going to be born. So, but then obviously it is birthed, and that is incredible. So, when I've learned that the Jewish people also call 5784 an enlarged year, I thought, okay, Lord, that makes super sense, more sense, because so many people I know are being stretched or crushed. Stretching and crushing happening at the moment. Really kind of just pushed and squeezed and, going through the most because of what is going on in their lives. Good morning, beautiful summer sky, gorgeous sky. Welcome, my lovely. So all of this is happening at this time. And now we are in Adar 2. And so we are in this extra additional bonus month within this Jewish leap year, having experienced as well a leap year of our own in the Gregorian calendar, which is all incredibly pertinent. And before I forget, I just want to make a point here quickly. Sorry. This is my point. You know that I have told you to save the date for the 10th of August. The 10th of August is when I will launch my third book. And I have my partner from the States coming out with the whole ministry team. And we're going to do this whole wonderful event on the 10th of August, 2024. And so I know it's a long weekend because Friday is the 9th of August, which is Women's Day. But if you can bring yourself to remain in Cape Town and come to the venue, there will be invitations and things closer to the time. For those of you who attended the book launch last year, you'll know that it's not to be missed. And this is going to be special because we're going to have these people here from Florida. So the 10th of August, to save the date for the launch of my third book. However, the 25th of May, the 25th of May is going to be the launch of my second book. So the 25th of May, ladies and gentlemen, because it's open to ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars, set the date aside for the 25th of May to come to my book launch, and for men and for women. And it is going to be incredible. And also, it is Mother's Day month. So Mother's Day is in May. So bring your mom. Let it be something that you bring your mom to. Let it buy tickets for the book launch for you and your mom as a Mother's Day present. You will get your book, my volume 2, Women of Significance volume 2. So this is volume 1, as most of you know. Women of Significance Volume 2 will be the book that comes out on the 25th of May, and that will be included in your gift bag. So for the price of the ticket, which I'm not sure yet what the tickets will cost because we haven't worked all of that out, but for the price of the ticket, you will get a book and a gift bag full of other lovely goodies. For those ladies and gentlemen who came to the book launch last year, the gift bags were phenomenal. The food was incredible. And I'm not just saying that. That was something that everybody said. So two dates that you need to save the date this year for Activate Her with Sally Goodwin. The 25th of May 2024 and the 10th of August 2024. And I know Women's Day is on the 9th of August, which is why we're doing the event on the 10th of August. It is going to be a Women's Day, Women's Month event. I know that's a long weekend, but if you can just stay in Cape Town for that weekend and come and celebrate women. So now this month of March that we're in now. So yeah, 25th of June, 25th of May, 10th of August, mark those 2 dates. So this month of March that we're in now is International Women's History Month, which is why we have been focusing so much on women in the Bible. And now, of course, we've got Purim coming up, so we are going to focus on Esther. I wish you stayed closer as well, special Sunette. Can't you plan a trip to Cape Town for one of those dates? Come on. At the book launch last year, I had a pastor from Namibia. I had somebody there from the United Arab Emirates. They came from all over the place. So, yeah, the Durans, my special friends from the Durans, who are now really my special friends. Okay, but I meant to mention that earlier. So we are in the book of Esther, and we're going to be looking at the book of Esther probably for the rest of this week. And so if we look at Esther chapter 1, I'm not going to read word for word, because otherwise we'll be here all day. But it speaks about how in the days of King, and his name is Ahasuerus, something like that. I can never pronounce it, but he was also known as King Xerxes. And so I'm going to call him King Xerxes because that's just easier to say. Otherwise, every time I say it, I have to stop and think about it and then spend 5 minutes afterwards wondering whether I pronounce it correctly. So he was the Persian king, and he reigned from India to Kush, 127 provinces. So this was in the days when Persia was a real power. They were in power at the time. They were defeated a little bit after this by the Greeks. But at this point in time, when we read about the story of Esther, Persia, so these empires rose and fell. The Persian Empire rose and fell, the Babylonian Empire rose and fell, the Greek Empire rose and fell, the Roman Empire rose and fell. All of these different empires who each time thought that they were the ones that were going to be ruling forever, learned very quickly that only God decides what empires survive and what empires don't. And actually no empires built by man survive, because it's impossible. Only things founded on the foundation of the Lord last for eternity, which is why I keep reminding you all that you need to look at your life and look at the things you're involved in and ask yourself, am I building for eternity? Am I building for legacy? Am I building kingdom? It doesn't, what we build in the natural here on the earth is just going to, but what we build for eternity, if we're building for the kingdom, that is very, very different. So here, this is King Xerxes. He's a very powerful king, and he reigns over 127 different provinces. And he's been reigning for 3 years, because it says in the 3rd year of his reign, in the book of Esther, verse 3, he made a feast for all his officials and servants. The power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces were before him, when he showed the riches of his esteemed reign and the splendor of his excellent greatness for many days, 180 days. For 180 days, King Xerxes demonstrated his wealth, his power, and his riches. A lot of pride there, a lot of ego there, and we all know what happens to that. Yes, Anisha, double portion. I didn't even think of that. It's a year of double portion, a true leap year. Come on. So he did this for 180 days. He demonstrated his wealth, his riches, and his power to the nobles and the princes of his 127 different provinces. Then when those 180 days were completed, he then made a feast that lasted for 7 days, for a full week, for all the people who were present in Shushan, or it's called Shushan, the city, or Susa. It's either one of those two names. And so after he's entertained all the nobles and the people who lead his provinces, he now institutes a 7-day feast where every person can come to the 7-day feast. All the people who are present in this city, in the city of Shushan or Susa, they're from great to small, it says in the Bible, they all get to come to his palace and celebrate for 7 days. And it goes on to tell you how, it was decorated, and then it says, and they served drinks in golden vessels, the vessels being different from one another, with much royal wine. So it was a real drinking feast. Although in verse 8 it does tell us that drinking was according to the law, no one was compelled. So the sovereign had ordered all the officers of his house that they should do according to each one's pleasure. So you could drink if you wanted to, didn't have to drink if you didn't want to. The way they say that, it makes it sound like there were places or feasts where people were compelled to drink. I don't know about that, but anyway, it just sounds strange that they would specifically mention that no one was compelled to drink at this feast, which definitely makes it sound like people were compelled to drink in other feasts. I don't know. So now King Xerxes is married. His queen is Vashti. And we all know Vashti because we all know Vashti's story, and she made way for Esther. And we spend most of our time when we read the book of Esther, when we speak about the book of Esther, we spend a lot of our time focusing on Esther, which is correct. It's absolutely correct. However, I want to pay a little bit of attention to the story of Vashti, because if Vashti hadn't done what she did, Esther wouldn't have been able to do what she did. And in order for Esther to take her place, Vashti had to be removed. And it wasn't that she was just removed unfairly or unjustly or unrighteously. In terms of it, I mean, it was actually unfair, unjust, and unrighteous, but it wasn't as if she was suddenly wiped out or something like that. She made a decision, she made a choice, and that choice, it led to her being removed. And we might not agree with the fact that she was removed, but there's something about the fact that she made a decision and she made a choice. Now, Esther, incredibly enough, is one of the books in the Bible, or the only book in the Bible, I think. I could be wrong, but I think it is the only book in the Bible where God is not mentioned at all, where you can see his hand behind the events, but he's not actually mentioned as, like in the other books, God said, God ordered, God did, God, he's not mentioned like that in the book of Esther. It's just the story of how things occur, but you can see the hand of God in it. So here we have Vashti, and she is the queen. And so while King Xerxes is doing this feast, the 7-day feast for all of these men, Queen Vashti is holding a similar feast in the palace for the women. So the men are celebrating on one hand and the women are celebrating on the other hand. The men are celebrating with the king and the women are celebrating with the queen. And incredibly enough, the name Vashti means beautiful, but it also can mean, now I need to just remember this, or get this correct, it also can mean when you drink, which is actually, God has a real sense of humor. Like, if you don't know that God has a sense of humor by now, then I release an encounter with God's sense of humor over you in Jesus' name, because God has a real sense of humor. And he loves puns and language, plays on language and things like that. He really does, because the Bible is full of them, and we miss them because we read the Bible in English or whatever our language is, and we don't read it in Hebrew. But I think it is absolutely amazing that Queen Vashti's name meant beautiful, because she was apparently very beautiful. But it also can mean when you drink, which is exactly what happened. Drinking was the downfall in the beginning of the book, and then sort of a saving grace in Esther's story, the whole wine drinking thing. So on the 7th day, it says, Esther chapter 1 verse 10, on the 7th day, when the heart of the sovereign was glad with wine, he ordered 7 eunuchs who were in attendance in the presence of himself, of King Xerxes, to bring Queen Vashti before him with her royal crown, in order to show her loveliness to the people and the officials, for she was lovely to look upon. So here we have confirmation that she was actually beautiful. So on the 7th day of the feast, now just imagine they've been drinking solidly for 7 days. If you read historical write-ups, historical reports on King Xerxes, he definitely drank a lot. He was also, as many of those kings in those days were, very volatile. One never knew apparently how he was going to react to something, which adds to the danger of Esther's story. He was very egocentric, If you just read about the wars that Persia entered into with Greece, and how even when he was losing, he refused to accept that, and he kept pushing, and there were so many soldiers who died in those wars because he just wouldn't allow them to just accept that Greece actually was now more powerful than Persia. And so he was very ego driven, very, nowadays we would probably say that he was a narcissist or had narcissistic tendencies. Very, very much so. And a lot of that obviously enhanced by the fact that he was king and king over this enormous kingdom, etc., etc. So we can grasp from all of this that King Xerxes wasn't used to being disobeyed. He wasn't used to being disobeyed. So now it's the 7th day of the feast. Him and all of his people have been drinking solidly for 7 days, pretty much. And this was apparently common to feasts in those days. So you can imagine what was happening, and the state of affairs with all of these people who had been drinking for 7 days. And on the 7th day, and the Bible's very diplomatic about it, it says he was glad with wine. His heart was glad with wine. And he orders his 7 eunuchs to go to Queen Vashti and command her to come with her royal crown and appear before all of these people. Now, bearing in mind that all the women were with Vashti and all the men were with Xerxes. So what he was saying is Vashti needed to come and perform before all the men. He had now shown off all the riches of his kingdom, everything that he owned, all his power, all his glory, all his splendor. He had shown all of these things off to everybody, and now he wanted to show his queen off. Now, in Esther chapter 1, verse 12, it says, Queen Vashti refused to come at the sovereign's command brought by his eunuchs, and the sovereign was very wroth, and his rage burned within him. Now, we all know when people drink too much that they go one of two ways, So his heart was glad with wine, but as soon as something didn't go his way, that turned to wrath and anger. Pretty much the way alcohol works, eh? So now, why did Vashti say no? Because she must have understood that there would be severe consequences. She must have understood that there would be severe consequences. Many, many scholars and theologians, including Jewish rabbis, say that his command or his call to her would have been for her to actually perform naked in front of all of these men, and that she would have been wearing only her crown. So she would have come with only her crown, or she would have come wearing something and then had to take that off, that she would have had to perform naked in front of all of these men who had all been drinking for a solid week. And we all know where that could have gone if she had honored Xerxes' request. However, she also must have known, as the queen, as someone who had been married to Xerxes, who understood, she was apparently probably from royal lineage. She must have understood the consequences of saying no, and she must have weighed those things up in her mind. She must have weighed up the possibilities of what could happen if she followed Xerxes' order, or what could happen if she didn't. Now, she might have thought, and this is all conjecture because nobody actually knows. The text doesn't tell us, and it doesn't say anywhere else apparently. But she might have thought that Xerxes was so drunk that he might forget. But she must have known, being married to him and being his queen, the volatility of his nature. And I guarantee you that this wasn't the first time, and it certainly wasn't the last, as we will see even in the book of Esther. Certainly wasn't the last, when his heart was glad with wine 1 minute and then filled with wrath and anger the next minute. And as I've said before, if you read up historically about him, it says in history books and things written about him that he was volatile, egocentric, short-tempered, short-fused, all of that kind of thing. So she must have known all of that, and yet she still said no. Now, feminists And I know that for many of you, feminism is a bad word, but I'm not talking about radical feminism the way we experience it today. But I'm talking about women who believe in equality for women, those sorts of feminists. They celebrate Vashti because of her decision to stand up for herself and not just follow Xerxes' commands. They celebrate her. They say that she stood for women in that instance, which isn't actually wrong, because if we read a little bit further down, it says in verse 12 that Xerxes' rage burned within him, and then he says to his wise men who understood the times, very important, but his wise men who understood the times and were close to him, he said to them, according to the law, what is to be done to Queen Vashti, because she did not perform the command of King Xerxes through the eunuchs. And so Memucan, who is one of the eunuchs, answers before the sovereign and the princes, and he says, Queen Vashti has misbehaved, not only toward the sovereign, but also toward all the princes and all the people who are in all the provinces of King Xerxes. For, Esther chapter 1 verse 17, for the matter of the queen shall go forth to all women, to make their husbands despised in their eyes, when they say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. And this day the princesses of Persia and Media shall say to all the sovereign's officials that they have heard of the matter of the queen with plenty of scorn and wrath. I want you to understand what that meant. Basically, what the king's advisors and eunuchs said back to him was this, when he said to them, according to the law, according to the Persian law, what is to be done to Queen Vashti because she has refused my command, directly refused my command? She basically just said, no, I'm not coming. So what did they say to him? They didn't just say, well, she has, you the king, and what you say goes. And she said no, so she needs to go. They didn't say that. They launched into this whole explanation about how her actions weren't only against the king. They were against every man in Persia, basically in the 127 provinces, because the wives and the princesses of those provinces would say, well, Queen Vashti said no, so we also saying no. Basically what they said, they were saying, if Vashti can stand up against the king, it is going to encourage every woman in Persia to stand up against her husband or against her man or whatever the case may be. It's like they were concerned about a revolt. They were concerned about a feminist revolution. They were concerned. And the women in Persia, while it was still back in, biblical days, and women definitely didn't have the same equality as men, there were women in Persia who actually had some rights, especially the wealthier women. They actually had some rights. They had more rights than the Jewish women had under Judaism. So the women in Persia, if you had to compare, weren't as badly off as the women in Judaism, as the Jewish women. They weren't as badly off. They had a few more rights, and they had a bit more say. But these men are absolutely blown away and completely overwhelmed and concerned about the fact that Vashti's act of defiance will lead to a whole lot of women acting defiantly and defying their husbands, etc., defying authority. They felt that Vashti's actions in saying no to King Xerxes was going to undermine all male authority in the whole nation. One woman's actions, and yes, she was the queen, and yes, she said no to the king, but honestly, how many women would have acted on that, even, really, in considering the times and the circumstances of the way that they lived? How many women would have actually gone, well, you know what, I'm going to do like Vashti did? I mean, Vashti was queen, which immediately gave her sort of more authority, of, you know, a few more rights, etc. So anyway, but these men freaked out completely. And so they said, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it does not pass away. Because when the king made a decree in Persia, at that time, it could not be reversed. Could not be reversed, which is something we will again explore later on in Esther. That Vashti shall come no more before King Xerxes, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. And the king's decree, Esther chapter 1 verse 20, and the king's decree which he makes shall be proclaimed throughout all his rule, great as it is, and all the wives will give esteem to their husbands, both great and small. So basically, Vashti was to be cast out. She couldn't be queen anymore. She would be thrown out of the royal palace. Nobody actually knows what happens to Vashti after that. Nobody knows. The chances are probably that she was killed, because she was more than likely of royal lineage, and if she'd managed to go back to her family or whatever the case may be. So she was either, if she was cast out, simply cast out, she would have been cast out with nothing. She would have had nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm not sure what would have happened to her then. But the likelihood, because of the way things worked in those days, the likelihood is that she was cast out and then quietly disposed of somewhere along the line. So now his eunuchs say, you need to send out a decree which cannot be reversed, that Vashti is removed. Somebody better than her is going to be chosen to take her place, and that must be proclaimed throughout all the provinces, and that wives must esteem their husbands, both great and small. In other words, in terms of hierarchy, you know, in terms of social class, whether you were the lowest of the low or the highest of the high, you had to esteem your husband. And the word was good in the eyes of the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. And he sent letters to all the provinces, to each province in its own writing, because they all had, some of them had different languages, to every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his own house and speak in the language of his people. Now that verse has been also looked at quite carefully. And obviously, Persia had conquered a whole lot of different nations, Israel being one of them. Persia had conquered a whole lot of different nations and brought a whole lot of people into exile in Persia. And because of, you know, the years that this would have taken place, because Xerxes' father was king of Persia previously, there would have been a degree of intermarriage between different nations, different languages, different people, etc., etc. And what is happening now is Xerxes is sending out this decree that every man will be master in his own house and speak in the language of his people. So in other words, where there had been intermarriage between different nations, and there was a possibility that there were two languages being spoken in that house. So the man had his language of his nation, the wife had her language of her nation, the children were probably raised bilingual, able to speak both languages, probably even trilingual, probably because there was a common Persian language that they would have learned. You know, and probably they, you know, rubbed along fine, and they spoke in both languages and everything was fine. And now Xerxes sends out this decree that the only language to be spoken will be the language that the man of the house speaks. So only the master of the house's language can be spoken. So the women can no longer speak in the language of their nation. The women can no longer speak in the language of their nation. So what happened? The Vashti steps up and says that she is going to disobey King Xerxes. Vashti steps up and says that she's going to disobey King Xerxes. She says no to what seems like a completely inane request, and you know, and she probably was well within her rights to say no, if it was going to be as bad as historians and theologians think that it probably was going to be. Now they are so concerned about the ripple effect on all the women in the 127 provinces that they now send out this decree that makes women even less able to live their lives in relative freedom, because they can now no longer speak in the language of their childhood or the language of their birth. They have to now speak in the language of their husband. If he was obviously not of their nation, then that would be a different language. And it might not seem like a big deal to you. You might think, oh, well, so they all had to speak this, the same language. But in a time where women had so few rights and such little freedom, that was enormous. It was an enormous thing to now have your last bit of identity taken from you, because the language of your birth, the language of your childhood is part of your identity. It's part of your roots. And there are people who are now in exile in Persia who their language is their last thread of connection to where they came from. And now they can no longer speak in that language. Women can no longer speak in that language. It's removing identity, removing the last bit of identity at a time when women had so few rights, removing the last bit of identity, of freedom from them, ordering them to only speak in the language of their husbands or their master's language. So, and I want you to see this as a parallel, or as a parallel for your own life. That sometimes God calls us to stand up for something, and we do. We stand up for something, and the result of us standing up for that is intense. It's enormous. It makes us wonder if it was worth it. There must have been women who hated Vashti after that, who were like, she's made life worse for us. After everything, she's made life worse for us. So, but actually, it was all part of a plan, God's plan, to make room for Esther, because God could see what was coming. God saw a bigger picture. God knew exactly what was happening. God was preparing to save his people, to deliver his people before they even knew that they needed deliverance. And so somebody stood up, Vashti stood up, and the consequences of her standing up seemed intense, enormous, unbelievable. But God was working. God was working. So for any Jewish woman who was married to a man who wasn't Jewish, they couldn't speak Hebrew anymore. And, they must have wondered what on earth was going on. But God was working. God was planning deliverance before they even knew that deliverance was necessary. So when God calls you to stand up for something, because now you have been loosed, when God calls you to stand up for something, and there is what we love to call backlash, understand that God has a plan. And it is very likely or very possible that that backlash is part of the plan. God allows it because he sees a bigger picture, something we don't see. And possibly he sees deliverance for us further down the line, and we don't even know we need deliverance. He sees redemption further down the line, and we don't even know we need redemption. So don't be despondent. Don't be distraught. Don't be in despair. Just say to the Lord, I know you see a bigger picture, and I'm waiting to watch how this outworks itself in my life, because you are a God of deliverance. You are a God of redemption. You are a God of restoration. So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning on this live. And yeah, I think I needed to honor Vashti and to honor what she did. And she might not have known, she probably didn't know that she was falling into the plan of the Lord, but she was. God was moving, and Vashti moved with him, whether she knew it or didn't know it. and she made room for Esther. So let's not forget that sometimes we are called to be Vashti. Sometimes we are called to make room for somebody else to step up. And we need to be okay with that. And let's remember Vashti with honor and affection for what she did. Okay, I'm going now. I've already gone. I go over time every time now. It's ridiculous. But I love you all. Bless you all. I'll see you on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. for Wisdom Wednesdays. And we will continue with Esther. Because Purim starts at sunset on Saturday evening, the 23rd of March, and runs through to sunset on Sunday evening, the 24th of March. So this week we will focus on Purim and the story of Esther. Love you all. Bless you all. See you on Wednesday.